What's up, podcasters? I forgot to actually pull up what my intro says. BRB for a second. Welcome to Inner Dialogue, the Inner Dialogue podcast. Inner Dialogue is a space unveiled from filters and sitting in vulnerability. It's your inner thoughts and the inner conversation you have with your inner self. My goal is never perfection, but starting and growing as I go. It's 12:11 a.m. on Saturday, May 6th, and I am significantly high tonight in the wee hours of this morning. I just finished journaling an hour and 1 minute journal all about my experience of being in a busy public restaurant with 11 new people, and what that experience was like for me and the overwhelm that I felt. Podcasters out there, I got into the car after leaving that restaurant and immediately sobbed. The overwhelm inside of me just needed to come out. I'm like, I was uncomfortable and I need to express that I was uncomfortable. And my partner, the most patient human on this earth, gave me the space to feel uncomfortable. I just had a safe space to say, I just need to cry and be upset and take a deep breath because I'm okay. I am safe. I was always safe through that situation. But you know what it taught me? That I'm allowed to not go to things like that. I don't have to go to things like that. It's not a human requirement. If it makes me uncomfortable, why am I going to go put myself through something like that? But I didn't learn that until tonight. I didn't learn that because I have not been in a scenario like that since pre-COVID. And it was a lot. And Alyssa pre-COVID is a hella different person than Alyssa 2023. Okay? So after I was done journaling, I stood up and had, a shit ton of things to say to Nick because my brain is firing like ping, 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 ping. You guys kind of experienced that in the first 2 episodes. Episode 3, which I have not listened to yet, I recorded it last night and it's about careers. It's pretty fucking awesome. If you haven't listened to that one, go listen to it. It's not even up yet. I haven't even listened to the playback of it to edit it for the first time yet. I just haven't had time. But I know it's fucking awesome. So go listen to Why Careers, episode 3. But I wasn't high for that episode. And I think that's a lot of what Inner Dialogue will be, is not me high. But I also want there to be some podcast episodes coined from my lovely friend, Gabby. She suggested that at her bachelorette party, and I said, ooh, that's funny as fuck. So I think there will definitely be some podcast episodes, but a lot of the Inner Dialogue episodes, I want to have a topic and a purpose and talk around something. And I realized that the podcast processing podcast, that's what that season will be called. That would be so fun. Let me write that down. Processing podcast. I don't know if it needs the dash, but that's funny. I like processing things on the podcast. The podcast, I should say. It's fun. And I have never experienced learning from another human being through them processing moments in their life. And I've had to figure out what processing looks like for me and how the tools that I have in my tool belt, how to use them, and also new tools that feel good to me. And I've learned from a lot of the greats so far in the mindset world and the spiritual world, people out there just trying to make the world a better place. And I'm growing into who ABSD is. After I got married, I changed my name. And because I had the choice to change my name, I decided that I was going to, let me backtrack. I had always known that I wanted to make my maiden name my middle name. That's what my mom did, and I really loved it. I loved that her maiden name was still a part of her name, and she dropped her given middle name. Now that I'm married and got to choose that, I also like that I now had the choice to choose my own middle name. You're born with a middle name. That's not something you choose. That's something your parents give you, just like your name. And in adulthood, it was a chance for me to change that and to step into something new, a new name. And so I always had this dream growing up because I was destined to have the initials S. My name was supposed to be Alyssa Sue Sweeney, named after one of my mom's BFFs. And Sue was not given to me as a middle name because my initials would have been S, which I just still think to this day that it would be a great conversation starter. So when I got married, I had told that story lots and lots of times, and I was thinking about what I wanted my name to be, and it came to me that I wanted to include my mom's maiden name as well, because a fun thing about me is that I'm a double cousin, which means that my dad's sister married my mom's brother. And because of that, there are 5 of us that all have the same Barker Sweeney genes, but from 2 separate sets of parents. It's fucking fascinating. I would love to get a group of humans that are all double cousins together in the same room and ask people about their experience, because I've never known people, other humans, to be a double cousin. And because of that, I've never gotten to share the space with people who have also, and to see how our experiences are similar or different. So if you're a double cousin and want to be on the podcast, DM me at the Alyssa Deloach on Instagram. Would love that. I was telling a story and I don't remember where I was going. Oh, changing my name. So Barker Sweeney has always been, the Barkers have always been important to me. The Sweeneys have always been important to me, but that's always been my name, right? So when I had a choice and I realized I could also add my mom's maiden name into my name, that's what I wanted to do. So I was playing around with whether I would do Sweeney Barker or Barker Sweeney. Would I hyphenate? Would I have them as 2 separate names? I wasn't sure. So one day we were sitting there and Nick said, Alyssa, you should do Barker Sweeney because then your initials would be BS. And I'm like, that's fucking hilarious. I can't have ass, but I can have bullshit. That feels good. So I changed my name legally to Alyssa Barker Sweeney Deloach. And it's interesting because on my social security card, that's not what it says. But everywhere else, it just says Alyssa Sweeney Deloach because it was not my legal name ever before. Adding Barker into my middle name is not possible in a lot of spaces. It's fascinating. But I love it. And so now my initials are ABSD. And I always, when I heard that and stepped into that and realized that those were my initials, it immediately clicked for me of this feels like what the name the world will know me by, the name people will call me. It's a name of my own. Alyssa will always be my name, but ABSD essentially a nickname and also an identifier. And I tried to lean into being ABSD so fast. I named my travel agency after it. I started signing things ABSD. Started writing in my journal like that too. And then there was a point where I was struggling with my travel agency that I kind of stepped back from that label and wanted to give myself space to just be Alyssa. I couldn't be ABSD because I didn't know who Alyssa was. And Alyssa is ABSD, but Alyssa is ABSD because ABSD is the most authentic version of Alyssa. And I couldn't be ABSD without finding that. And so when I had the space after closing my travel agency and just leaning into doing things that felt good and that were childish and things that I used to do just for fun, like handstands and cartwheels, climbing trees, eating dessert first, it didn't matter. Just doing things that felt good and were childish and childlike and just that brought me joy. It helped me open space to do that a little bit more, and then to do that a little bit more, and then to take things from the perspective of that childlike love for life, right? When you watch children experience things for the first time, they might be a little bit scared, but they're excited to try. We lose that as adults. We lose the want and the desire to try new things, to put ourselves in uncomfortable situations. I went to the butterfly pavilion yesterday with my cousin, and they have an option where you can sit and hold Rosie, and Rosie is a tarantula. And before we sat down to hold Rosie, I was talking with the woman sitting there, and I wish I could remember her name. Bummer. And I asked how many Rosies they had, and she said, well, they have shifts just like work, like you and I do. And this Rosie is on her second shift today, and then she'll be off for the rest of the week. And I was like, oh, that's cool. They had 4 Rosies that they cycled through. And I asked her about her training and like what that looked like for her and if she was scared, or she's like, I got it on the first try. And I'm like, that's cool. She was so calm and just like sitting there holding this tarantula. And the tarantula crawled onto my hand, and then he sat there for a second, and then she like hipped him along, and he crawled off onto her hand again. But I experienced holding a tarantula, one, and I experienced it in a safe environment where I am not going to get hurt, and also that tarantula is not going to get hurt. How fucking badass is that? That's why I love museums, right? Like there were touch tanks, and so I was fucking touching everything. I wanted to feel it all. And like I grew up on the Gulf Coast. I've gone to Moat Marine more times than I can count. I have slept on the floor of this aquarium with Girl Scouts as a kid, next to the tanks. I have stuck my hands inside of the touch tanks. I have been on a shark tagging trip in Miami, Florida, and have touched sharks and helped tag sharks in our environment in a safe way for research. I've gotten to do some really, really awesome experiences. And when I see those experiences pop up, for a while in my life, I felt scared to do them. And I felt scared to do them because of the body that I live in and how I lived in that body. I was so afraid to try. I was so afraid to be a little uncomfortable because I was uncomfortable all the time. I didn't want to be more uncomfortable. But I also said yes a lot. I am a person who has always loved life and taken opportunities as they've come. I've also said no to a lot of really cool opportunities because I wasn't comfortable. You never know what's going to come out on the podcast. It's so good. The Inner Dialogue podcast is growing. I have not yet announced on social media. I will be announcing on social media soon, and by the time this is announced on social media, episode 4 will be up. Same with episode 3, which they're not up yet. I'm creating this podcast as I go and as it feels good, and that might be 4 episodes in a week, and the next week or 2 weeks or a month be 0. But I have no responsibility to keep a schedule, and I have no responsibility to anybody to do it a certain way or to fill the space in a certain way. It all just gets to be what feels good to me. And that is so freaking kick-ass, to give myself that space and to say, yeah, this just gets to be mine. I just get to do it and have fun with it because I want to. It doesn't have to be a certain length. It doesn't have to be anything. It just gets to be me. That's so cool. So I don't have any wins, gratitude, or moments of growth written down, but I'm going to sit here and come up with a few because that's going to feel good to end this episode with that. A win for today was I did not feel like driving to a state park, but I had some really awesome recommendations on my Denver recommendation list, and I tried a new park, and it was so cool. And it was in the middle of Denver City and just had buildings and houses on all sides of it. There's only street parking to this park. And it's huge. Blocks and blocks and blocks of park. It's amazing and beautiful, and I'm so grateful that I got to experience it. And I did one loop around the park, and then I drove and went home, and it was magical. It was so good. That's a win and something I'm grateful for. A moment of growth for today was dinner with 11 new people. And although I felt extremely overwhelmed at dinner, and my anxiety began to take over, and the overwhelm began to take over, especially at the end, it taught me that I don't like to be in that sort of setting. And that's okay. I don't have to be. And it's not anybody else did at that dinner to make me feel that way. It's just how I felt in that kind of environment. And that's not something that I want. And that is a huge moment of growth. And I am so grateful to have moments to grow like that. I'm grateful for time with my partner today and hard conversations about where we're going to live in 3 months. Y'all, we don't talk enough about how hard it is to move and to talk about it and to figure out a plan and to go through the plan and the motions and the money that is attached to moving. I'm just grateful that the door is open and that it is a conversation we are having. And that's a win, gratitude, and moment of growth for me and also for our relationship. When we moved to Colorado almost a year ago, 9 months ago, 10 months ago, there was 5% conversation about moving. It just happened. And it happened well because it was planned enough, but there are so many pieces that we didn't even talk about because we were both overwhelmed and didn't have the space for it. But now we are sitting in it and in those hard conversations, and I'm just so proud of us. I'm so proud of us for all we've done in our relationship, and so proud of all of the growth and the hard conversations we've sat in so that we can grow and become better versions of ourselves each and every day for our future selves and also our future family and the millions of lives that we touch in the process. I'm so grateful. This has been a really fun episode of Processing Podcast. The Processing Podcast. Podcast Processing. Podcast Processing, I think I like better. We're going to see what sticks. Well, thanks for joining me. This has been a lot of fun. And I want you to know that I love you. You are loved by the divine, the universe, God, and angels. And you are worthy just because you exist. There's no proof required to being worthy of a wonderful, wonderful life that is right in your next season of your life. A baby step is a big step. Continue to take a baby step daily, weekly, towards where you want to be in the future. Because time is passing anyway. And when you look back in a year, you can either be uncomfortable and in the exact same spot, or you can be uncomfortable and change and grow and get to look back and say, damn, a year ago, that was me. Y'all want to know where I was a year ago? Oh, this is also gratitude, a win, and moment of growth. I was thinking about this today. A year ago, I was teaching in a 5th grade classroom, living in St. Pete, Florida, with my house covered in folding tables with 90% of my belongings on them, trying to sell them at yard sales that we did multiple times. I had not shaved my head yet, and we had this shell of a plan to move to Colorado in a few months. I had barely opened my travel agency, but had not found the certification program yet. I don't think I had announced it even yet on social media or to friends and family in an active way. I was afraid to show up online, and I was not anywhere near my authentic self a year ago. Y'all, so much work can be done in a year. So much growth can be done in a year. If every single day is a bad day right now, a step towards creating a good day, a good hour, a good moment can turn into so much more than you can ever believe. Start with a minute, and it'll grow and grow until it becomes a day, until it becomes 2 days, a week, a month, a lifetime. Time is passing anyway. I am so proud of you and the human that you are. I love you so much. Go out, live loudly, love loudly. Your light shines so bright. Your love shines so bright. Find things that bring you joy and do them often as you can. Life is meant to be lived. I love you. I adore you. Till next time on the podcast processing podcast. I don't know. I kind of like it both ways. We'll see what sticks. I love you. Bye.